On December 17th, 1994, 20-year-old Deon Dreyer tragically drowned in Bushman's Hole, also known as Bushman's Cave, while practicing for a technical deep dive later that week. Dreyer was part of a team led by Nuno Gomes, and according to accounts from divers who were with him at the time, it's believed that he lost consciousness during ascent, about 50 meters from the surface, due to oxygen toxicity or hypercapnia, a condition caused by an excess of carbon dioxide in the bloodstream. Dreyer was not the first to lose his life in Bushman's Hole, but his death became one of the most notable. Just 2 weeks later, Dreyer's parents, Theo and Mary Dreyer, hired a small, remotely operated submersible vehicle previously used by De Beers for mining. Multiple dives were conducted, and although the vehicle retrieved Dreyer's dive helmet, his body was never found. It seemed Dreyer had vanished into the abyss. The story picked up nearly a decade later, in October of 2004. Extreme cave diver Dave Shaw had just set a new world depth record in Bushman's Hole, descending to an astonishing 270 meters. Using advanced diving equipment and specialized gas mixtures, Shaw pushed the limits of human capability. But his record-breaking feat was soon overshadowed by an eerie discovery. He had found the remains of Deon Dreyer, one of the few who had attempted to explore the extreme depths of this underwater cavern. Shaw had not expected to find Dreyer's body, but upon surfacing, he immediately contacted Dreyer's parents. Understanding that he might be the only person capable of retrieving the remains, he made a solemn vow. He would return to Bushman's Hole and bring Deon home. On January 8, 2005, true to his word, Shaw prepared for what would be the 333rd dive of his remarkable career. Waiting at the surface were his dive team and Dreyer's parents, all anxiously hoping for a successful recovery. At precisely 6:13 a.m., Shaw submerged into the depths of the cave, unaware that he was beginning the final dive of his life. Shaw carried a body bag designed to recover Dreyer's remains. According to his team, the descent went smoothly. He followed a carefully placed diving line to the sinkhole's bottom, then switched to a secondary line leading directly to Dreyer's body. Everything was going according to plan. But then, the unexpected happened. Shaw had been warned that Dreyer's body might be positively buoyant, a result of the process called adipocere formation. At extreme depths, bodies decompose differently, forming a wax-like substance that increases buoyancy. If this had occurred, retrieving the body would be far more difficult. Unfortunately, Shaw's worst fears were realized. Covered in mud, Dreyer's remains had undergone decomposition and were now partially floating. What should have been a straightforward recovery turned into a struggle against the body's buoyancy. Then, another problem arose, one that would seal Shaw's fate. Wanting to document the recovery, Shaw had mounted a camera to his helmet, where his primary dive flashlight would normally be. To compensate, he had switched to a shoulder-mounted, tethered flashlight. This last-minute change introduced a critical risk: entanglement. As Shaw wrestled with Dreyer's body, trying to fit it into the body bag, Shaw felt his movements becoming restricted. Turning to investigate, he realized the worst. His equipment had become ensnared. The cables from his flashlight and the diving lines had tangled around him. The more he struggled, the worse it became. His breathing accelerated, his oxygen supply dwindled, and panic began to set in. At some point, Shaw must have realized his grim reality. He wasn't getting out. With precious seconds slipping away, he pulled out his writing slate and scrawled his final message: Dave not coming back. Shortly after, he drowned. 13 minutes after Shaw submerged, Don Shirley followed. His role was to descend to 220 meters and wait for Shaw's return. But as he hovered at depth, Shaw never emerged. Peering deeper, he finally saw a single, motionless light far below. The realization hit. Something had gone terribly wrong. Shirley had already exceeded his planned depth and time. Pushing further could cost him his life. Above, Mark Andrews and Dusan Stokchikovic waited at 150 meters, expecting to see two lights approaching. But only one appeared. As time ran out, they used a slate to alert the rest of the team that something was wrong. When Peter Herbst saw the message, he made a critical decision. He descended further. Relief flooded through him when he spotted Shirley alive. But then, Shirley flashed his slate. Dave not coming back. There was no time to grieve. Shirley had spent too long at depth. As he ascended, the consequences of his prolonged dive became clear. Around 50 meters, he became disoriented and nauseous, eventually vomiting into his mouthpiece, a clear sign of decompression sickness. Despite the life-threatening conditions, Shirley survived, thanks to more than 12 hours of decompression and emergency treatment in a hyperbaric chamber. However, the ordeal left him with permanent balance issues, forcing him into rehabilitation. Even so, he continues to dive to this day. 3 days after the incident, the recovery team returned to retrieve the remaining equipment. What they found shocked them. Attached to the dive line, along Shaw's light, were both Dave Shaw and Deon Dreyer's bodies. In the end, Shaw had kept his promise. He had brought Deon Dreyer back to the surface.
If you liked that video, please consider leaving a like and a thumbs up. And if you have any suggestions for future videos or ways that we can improve, please leave them in the comments below. With that, thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in the next video.